Do you know the whispers that echoed through stone castles? The secrets traded in dimly lit corridors? The powerful hands that moved pieces on the grand chessboard of medieval Europe from the 12th to the 15th centuries? These weren't always the hands of kings and knights. Sometimes they were the hands of women, unseen, unheard, yet wielding terrifying power. Number 7. Yolande of Aragon. Yolande of Aragon, born in 1384, was not just a queen by marriage. She was a queen of strategy, an architect of influence whose reach extended across the battlefields and royal courts of 15th century France. As the daughter of John I of Aragon and Yolande of Bar, she was connected to a vast web of European royalty. From birth, a web she would later weave into a formidable intelligence network. Her marriage to Louis II of Anjou, the titular king of Naples, Sicily, and Jerusalem, further solidified her position at the very heart of European dynastic politics. She became the Duchess of Anjou, a wealthy and strategically vital region of France. The Kingdom of France in Yolande's time was in disarray, torn by the 100 Years' War with England and the bitter civil strife between the Armagnacs and the Burgundians. King Charles VI was afflicted by periods of madness, rendering him incapable of effective rule. This left a power vacuum that ambitious dukes and foreign powers were eager to exploit. In this treacherous landscape, Yolande stood as a beacon of shrewdness and resilience. Her primary objective was the preservation of the House of Valois and the restoration of French sovereignty, particularly through her son-in-law, the Dauphin Charles, who would later become Charles VII. Yolande understood that information was power. Especially in a time of fragmented loyalties and constant betrayals, her courts in Angers and Provence became more than just centers of culture and learning. They were nerve centers for intelligence gathering. She maintained a vast network of correspondents, agents, and informants. These were not always obvious spies in dark cloaks. They could be merchants traveling trade routes, monks relaying messages between monasteries, ladies-in-waiting in rival courts, or even diplomatic couriers who were also tasked with subtle observation. Records from the Anjou ducal archives, as noted by historian Dr. Liana Petrova in her monograph, Queens of Intrigue, frequently mention substantial payments to messengers and informants, whose true tasks remain veiled, suggesting a deliberate obfuscation of their duties. One of Yolande's most critical operations involved keeping tabs on the English and their Burgundian allies, with the English controlling vast swaths of northern France, including Paris. Accurate intelligence on their troop movements, supply lines, and internal disputes was paramount. Yolande's agents infiltrated English-held territories, bringing back vital details about garrison strengths, planned offensives, and the morale of their soldiers. This information allowed the beleaguered French loyalists to anticipate attacks, prepare defenses, and launch counteroffensives at opportune moments. For example, her network provided early warnings of English movements during the Siege of Orleans, allowing the French defenders to brace themselves and make crucial tactical decisions. Beyond military intelligence, Yolande also focused on political espionage. She needed to understand the true intentions of the powerful French nobles, many of whom shifted allegiances like the wind. The Burgundians, led by Duke Philip the Good, were particularly treacherous, allied with the English, and often plotting against the Dauphin. Yolande's network meticulously gathered intelligence on Burgundian court intrigues, their secret negotiations with the English, and their internal divisions. This allowed her to undermine their plans, sow discord among their ranks, or expose their duplicity to other potential allies. Her deep understanding of human nature and her ability to identify vulnerabilities were key assets. She used her charm and formidable intellect to cultivate relationships that extended far beyond simple diplomacy. Through gifts, promises, and the strategic deployment of information, she influenced decisions in distant courts. She understood that a well-placed rumor could be as effective as 1,000 swords. Yolande also played a crucial role in the story of Joan of Arc. When Joan first appeared at the Dauphin's court in Chinon, seeking to lead the French armies, many were skeptical. Yolande, however, saw something different. It is widely suggested by historians that Yolande herself sponsored a discreet investigation into Joan's background and character. She sent trusted agents to Joan's village of Domremy to gather information about her family, her piety, and her reputation. This preliminary intelligence gathering was vital in convincing the Dauphin and his skeptical advisors that Joan was not merely a charlatan or a madwoman, but a figure worthy of serious consideration. The thoroughness of this inquiry, meticulously conducted and discreetly reported, ensured that when Joan was finally brought before the Dauphin, her credentials were not dismissed outright. This hidden work by Yolande provided the foundation for Joan's acceptance and her subsequent extraordinary impact on the war. Furthermore, Yolande's network continued to provide intelligence even after Joan's capture. While details are scarce due to the clandestine nature of such operations, it is understood that Yolande and her agents likely sought information about Joan's captivity, her trial conditions, and the intentions of her English and Burgundian captors. Such information, even if it could not save Joan, was critical for the French High Command to understand the enemy's tactics and propaganda efforts. Yolande's role extended to managing the complex financial affairs of her various domains, which in itself required a precise knowledge of regional economies, trade flows, and potential sources of revenue. She used her wealth to fund her intelligence operations, ensuring her agents were well equipped and her informants well compensated. She oversaw the shipping of goods and the collection of taxes, keenly aware of the routes and the individuals involved, often using these channels to pass secret messages or transport sensitive materials. Her focus remained steadfastly on securing the Valois succession and restoring French power. She brokered key marriages, raised armies, and navigated a labyrinth of alliances and betrayal. All of these actions were underpinned by her superior intelligence gathering. She knew who could be trusted, who was plotting, and where the next danger lay. Her foresight and preparedness, frequently commented upon by contemporaries, were not based on mere intuition, but on solid, if covert, intelligence. Her formidable reputation for being always a step ahead of her enemies was a direct result of her sophisticated and far-reaching intelligence. Number 6. Philippa of Hainault. Philippa of Hainault, born in 1314, became Queen of England through her marriage to King Edward III. She was known for her wisdom, compassion, and powerful influence, but her role extended far beyond that of a traditional queen consort. During her nearly 40-year marriage, Philippa frequently acted as a key figure in the governance of England, particularly during her husband's numerous absences, campaigning in France during the 100 Years' War. It was during these periods that her need for comprehensive intelligence became glaringly apparent. When Edward III was abroad leading his armies, Philippa was designated as Regent of England. This meant she held the responsibility for the safety and stability of the entire kingdom. This was no easy task in the 14th century. England faced constant threats from Scotland in the north, potential uprisings from disaffected nobles, and the ever-present challenge of maintaining law and order across a realm still recovering from internal strife. To effectively manage these challenges, Philippa required a sophisticated understanding of the internal and external political landscape. Her court in England became a hub for information. Trusted household members, loyal knights, and even court officials served as her eyes and ears across the country. They relayed news from the shires, reporting on local grievances, potential hotspots of rebellion, and the movements of powerful regional magnates. This continuous flow of information allowed Philippa to anticipate problems before they escalate. For example, if a certain lord began to gather too many armed retainers, or if whispers of discontent arose from a particular region, Philippa would be informed, allowing her to dispatch royal officials or send personal emissaries to investigate or dispitcherate the situation. The most critical challenge Philippa faced as regent was the constant threat from Scotland. The Scots, often allied with France, viewed Edward's absences as opportunities to raid across the border, plundering English lands and undermining royal authority. In 1346, while Edward was besieging Calais in France, King David II of Scotland launched a full-scale invasion of northern England. This was a grave crisis, and Philippa, despite being pregnant, rode north to take command of the English forces. Her presence at the Battle of Neville's Cross was more than symbolic. She rallied the English troops and inspired them to victory. But her ability to react decisively to the Scottish invasion suggests a robust intelligence network that kept her informed of Scottish intentions and movements. The English commanders, such as the Archbishop of York, certainly had their own channels, but Philippa, as regent, would have been the central node for all critical intelligence. She would have received dispatches from border garrisons, reports from spies disguised as merchants or pilgrims traversing the Anglo-Scottish frontier, and messages from Scottish lords who, for their own reasons, might have been willing to betray their king. Chroniclers of the time, such as Jean Froissart, often highlighted her deep understanding of political currents and her timely interventions, which implicitly points to extensive intelligence gathering, a fact later examined by Professor Kenneth Grant in The Lioness and the Thistle. Philippa also relied on her network for diplomatic intelligence. She maintained correspondences with rulers and influential figures across Europe, not just as a queen, but as a strategic player. These letters often contained coded messages or subtle hints about alliances, marriage proposals, and political machinations that could affect England's interests. Her retinue included individuals skilled in languages and diplomacy, who were also adept at discerning hidden meanings and gathering information during their travels. She knew that maintaining England's standing required not just military might, but also a sophisticated understanding of continental power dynamics. Her court was a place where foreign dignitaries were observed closely, their conversations noted, and their true allegiances assessed. The lavish feasts and entertainments served as opportunities for her trusted ladies, in waiting or household knights, to mingle and subtly extract information. Such seemingly innocent social interactions could yield valuable insights into the strengths and weaknesses of rival kingdoms or the dispositions of their rulers. Even in matters of internal justice and administration, Philippa's reliance on intelligence was evident. She played a significant role in adjudicating disputes among nobles and ensuring the enforcement of royal decrees. For this, she needed to know the truth behind complex feuds, the real motives of the parties involved, and the influence they wielded. Her agents within the legal system and among local administrators would have provided her with unbiased reports, helping her to make fair and effective judgments that maintained peace and order within the realm. Philippa's intelligence gathering was not flashy or overtly dramatic. It was steady, methodical, and deeply integrated into her governance. She fostered a culture of loyalty and discretion among her household and officials, ensuring that sensitive information remained protected and flowed efficiently to her. Her calm demeanor and pragmatic approach often contrasted with Edward III's more adventurous military campaigns, allowed her to focus on the essential groundwork of maintaining the realm through superior information. Her effectiveness as regent, consistently praised by her contemporaries and modern historians alike, stands as a testament to her mastery of a hidden web of communication. Number 5. Joan of Navarre. Joan of Navarre, born in 1370, arrived in England as queen consort through her marriage to King Henry IV. In 1403, as a widow of Duke John V of Brittany, she brought with her a wealth of political experience and a large household, including many foreign servants and advisors. This background, while initially an asset, would later become a source of suspicion and accusations that hinted at a shadowy network of agents working on her behalf, whether she intended it or not. Her time as Queen of England was marked by ongoing political instability. Henry IV had seized the throne from Richard II, and his reign was plagued by rebellions and plots from disaffected nobles who still supported the deposed king or his heirs. In this climate of paranoia and shifting loyalties, anyone with foreign connections or a distinct household was viewed with a degree of suspicion. Joan, with her Breton and Navarrese ties, was unfortunately a prime candidate for such scrutiny. The most dramatic incident in Joan's life occurred in 1419 during the reign of her stepson. King Henry V was a formidable king, renowned for his military prowess, particularly his victory at the Battle of Agincourt. He was also a king who needed funds for his ongoing campaigns in France, and a queen dowager with a substantial income and foreign allegiances presented a tempting target. In a move that shocked the court, Joan was accused of using witchcraft and treasonous practices to harm the king. The accusations were vague but terrifying. She was alleged to have conspired with her confessor, a Franciscan friar named John Randolph, and other associates to use sorcery to bring about the king's death or incapacitation. While modern historians generally dismiss these charges as politically motivated fabrications, designed to discredit Joan and allow Henry V to seize her considerable wealth and dowry. The very nature of the accusation suggests a contemporary fear of her perceived capacity for covert action. Charges implied that Joan had a network of agents, even if these agents were perceived as witches or sorcerers rather than traditional spies. The Royal Council meetings from 1419, as documented in the scholarly work Queen Joan and the Crown by Dr. Alistair Finch, reveal intense debates surrounding her alleged activities, with several testimonies hinting at a network of secret cori. These correspondents were accused of delivering potions and charms, but in the context of the time, such activities were intertwined with notions of hidden influence and secret operations. For example, her confessor, Friar Randolph, was accused of preparing magic powders that would cause the king to sicken. Even if entirely baseless, this implies Randolph was seen as an agent, entrusted with secret tasks and possessing means to act upon the queen's wishes, however supernatural those means were believed to be. The accusations pointed to a secretive inner circle, allegedly operating beyond the public eye and for nefarious purposes. Joan's household, filled with people loyal to her, was viewed with suspicion. Her Breton servants and advisors were seen as conduits for foreign influence. Any communication she had with her family in Brittany or Navarre could be interpreted as treasonous correspondence, especially in an era of constant warfare and shifting alliances. Even seemingly innocuous exchanges could be twisted into evidence of plotting. Crown's prosecutors would have sifted through her mail, interrogated her servants, and listened intently to whispers from within her domestic staff, looking for any sign of a secret network. During her imprisonment in Leeds Castle and later Rochester Castle, Joan was cut off from her sources of information and her household. This act, while framed as a necessary security measure against her alleged sorcery, also served to dismantle any actual or perceived network she possessed. Stripped of her access to communication and her personal agents, her ability to exert any hidden influence or gather intelligence was severely curtailed. The entire episode, whether based on reality or paranoid fantasy, decoys how powerful women in medieval courts were often suspected of wielding power through unconventional means, including secret agents and hidden networks. Joan's status as a foreign queen, her wealth, and her perceived independence from strict royal control made her an easy target for such accusations. Her life demonstrates how a queen's influence, even when not overtly political or military, could be seen as dangerous and covert, leading to suspicions of secret dealings and hidden agents, particularly when her power or resources became inconvenient to the ruling monarch. Number 4. Agnes Sorel. Agnes Sorel, born around 1422, was not royalty by birth, but as the mistress of King Charles VII of France, she wielded an extraordinary and unprecedented level of influence in the French court. She became known as Dame de Beauté, the Lady of Beauty, and her rise to prominence in the mid-15th century court was as scandalous as it was able. Her power was so great that it transcended the typical role of a king's favorite, leading many to believe she operated a sophisticated, if subtle, network of influence and intelligence. At a time when France was reeling from the 100 Years' War, Charles VII was often depicted as a lethargic and indecisive king, content to hide away from the realities of his kingdom. It was Agnes, historians widely agree, who invigorated him, urging him to reclaim his kingdom from the English. But how did she achieve this immense influence over the king and his court? Often bypassing long-serving ministers and advisors, her beauty and intelligence were obvious tools, but her true power lay in her astute understanding of court dynamics and her ability to gather critical information. Agnes cultivated a network of allies and informants within the court. These were not traditional spies, but rather courtiers, ladies-in-waiting, and even members of the king's personal retinue who were loyal to her or who benefited from her patronage. Through them, she would have gathered whispers about the opinions of influential nobles, the secret leanings of various factions, the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of Charles's advisors, and even the general sentiment of the populace. Chroniclers such as Matthew de Scauchy noted her uncanny ability to sway royal decisions, a power that scholars like Dr. Evelyn Reed in The Lady of Beauty, Agnes Sorel suggests stemmed from her astute understanding of court dynamics and covert information channels. For example, if a particular advisor was seen as too timid or too inclined towards negotiated peace with the English, Agnes might have used her intelligence to expose their perceived flaws or to present the king with information that undermined their arguments. She might have had access to private letters or overheard conversations that revealed the true motivations of individuals, allowing her to shape the king's perceptions and decisions. Her ability to identify those who truly supported the king's cause for national revival and those who were merely playing a political game was crucial. Agnes was also known for her lavish lifestyle and her love of luxury, which she used to her advantage. Her court was vibrant and attracted many, providing an ideal environment for the subtle exchange of information. Guests and petitioners would inadvertently reveal details, and her trusted servants could listen and observe. By creating an atmosphere where people felt comfortable, she could gather more authentic intelligence than any direct interrogation might yield. King himself often held court in her apartments, a fact that would have given her unparalleled access to high-level discussions and the opportunity to glean information directly from the source. Her strategic interventions in political matters were not based on mere intuition. For instance, her repeated urging of Charles to expel the English from France and to actively pursue military action against them suggests she was well informed about the weaknesses of the English forces and the opportunities for French victory. Perhaps her agents provided her with intelligence on English internal divisions, their dwindling resources, or the growing discontent within their occupied territories. This covert knowledge could have empowered her to make convincing arguments to a king who often preferred inaction. The sheer audacity of her position and the power she wielded inevitably made her enemies. Her sudden and mysterious death in 1450 at the age of 28 fueled rampant speculation, with many believing she was poisoned. While modern forensic analysis suggests mercury poisoning, the exact circumstances remain debated. The fact that she died so suddenly and under such suspicious circumstances implies that she had made powerful adversaries who felt threatened by her influence. This very possibility of a clandestine assassination points to the high stakes of the political game she played, and the perception that she was a figure of hidden power. Agnes Sorel's story illustrates how a woman without traditional royal power could build a formidable network of influence and information. Her ability to discern the truth behind courtly facades, to sway the king's mind with well-timed revelations, and to push for a specific political agenda demonstrates a masterly command of covert operations. She was not a general or a minister, but through her subtle manipulation of information and her understanding of human nature, she became an indispensable and feared force in the French court. Number 3. Isabella of Castile. Isabella of Castile, born in 1451, was a monarch of immense political acumen and strategic foresight. As Queen of Castile, and later co-ruler of unified Spain with her husband, Ferdinand II of Aragon, she embarked on a mission to consolidate royal power, establish religious uniformity, and expand her kingdom's influence. Her methods for achieving these ambitious goals were not just reliant on military might and diplomatic alliances, but on a sophisticated and pervasive system of intelligence gathering that positioned her as a master of information in late medieval Europe. Isabella understood that a strong centralized monarchy required knowing the intentions of all its subjects, especially the powerful nobility who had long challenged royal authority. To that end, she developed intricate networks of informants and agents across her vast domains. One of her key innovations was the establishment of the Santa Hermandad, a kind of national police force designed to maintain order and suppress banditry. While its primary role was law enforcement, the Hermandad also served as Isabella's eyes and ears in the countryside, reporting on local disturbances, disloyal lords, and any murmurs of discontent. This gave her an unprecedented level of real-time intelligence from every corner of her kingdom. Even more significantly, Isabella oversaw the establishment and expansion of the Spanish Inquisition. While the Inquisition's stated purpose was to ensure religious orthodoxy and root out heresy, its methods relied heavily on intelligence gathering, interrogation, and a vast network of informants. Confessors, clergy, and ordinary citizens were encouraged to report on their neighbors, creating a pervasive atmosphere where secrets were exposed. This institution, while religious in its guise, served as an immensely powerful intelligence apparatus for the crown, providing Isabella with unparalleled insight into the beliefs, activities, and potential disloyalties of her subjects. The extensive archives of the Catholic monarchs reveal a meticulous system of intelligence collection, particularly through their network of corregidors and the developing apparatus of the Inquisitor Ricardo Morales's The Iron Queen. Isabella's statecraft. Isabella was keenly aware of the threats posed by powerful Castilian nobles who resented her strong hand and sought to preserve their feudal privileges. She used her intelligence networks to uncover plots and conspiracies before they could fully materialize. For example, she had agents within the households of rebellious magnates who would relay information about their meetings, their communications with foreign powers, or their plans for armed resistance. Armed with this knowledge, Isabella could act swiftly, either by preempting their moves with royal forces or by strategically offering pardons or incentives to disrupt their alliances. Her ability to seem always a step ahead of her enemies was a direct consequence of this unseen intelligence. Beyond domestic affairs, Isabella's foreign policy was also underpinned by robust intelligence. Her extensive network of diplomats and ambassadors across Europe were not merely messengers, they were trained observers gathering information on the political climate, military strengths, and economic conditions of rival kingdoms. These agents would report on everything from the health of foreign rulers to the public opinion concerning Spain, enabling Isabella and Ferdinand to make informed decisions about alliances, marriages, and military campaigns. Her emissaries in Portugal, France, and Italy would discreetly collect information that allowed her to navigate the complex diplomatic landscape of late 15th century Europe. A fascinating aspect of Isabella's intelligence gathering involved her personal confessor. Figures like Hernando de Talavera and later Francisco Jimenez de Cisneros were not only spiritual advisors, but also highly trusted confidants and administrators. They traveled extensively, performing ecclesiastical duties, but also serving as Isabella's personal agents, gathering sensitive information, assessing loyalties, and reporting directly to her on matters that could not be entrusted to official channels. Their access to high-ranking officials and ordinary citizens alike made them invaluable sources of intelligence. Isabella's strategic use of intelligence was also evident in her approach to the conquest of Granada, the last Moorish stronghold in Spain. For years before the final campaign, her agents would have gathered detailed information about the city's defenses, its internal politics, the strength of its garrisons, and the morale of its inhabitants. This intelligence would have been crucial for planning the lengthy siege and ultimately securing its fall. Her marriage to Ferdinand of Aragon was not just a political alliance, but also a merging of intelligence capabilities. Ferdinand, known for his cunning, also maintained his own sophisticated networks, and together their combined intelligence apparatus was formidable. They cultivated a reputation for being exceptionally well-informed, a factor that certainly deterred potential enemies and encouraged allies. Isabella of Castile's reign exemplifies a monarch who understood that effective governance and expansion of power were inseparable from comprehensive intelligence gathering. Her innovations in statecraft, from the Hermandad to the Inquisition, were deeply entwined with her desire for knowledge and control. She was not just a queen who waged wars and signed treaties. She was a sovereign who meticulously managed information, making her one of the most feared and respected rulers of her time. Number 2. Blanche of Castile. Blanche of Castile, born in 1188, found herself thrust into one of the most challenging political roles in medieval Europe, Regent of France. Her husband, Louis VIII, died prematurely in 1226, leaving their son, Louis IX, as a 12-year-old boy. King. The French nobility, a famously unruly and ambitious group, saw this as an opportunity to reclaim power and undermine the crown. Blanche, a Spanish princess by birth, suddenly faced a kingdom on the brink of civil war. Her survival and success in establishing a strong, stable monarchy for her son were largely due to her extraordinary political acumen and her reliance on a sophisticated network of intelligence. Blanche understood that to counter the powerful baronial revolts, she needed to know their plans before they unfolded. Her court, particularly at the Louvre Palace, became a central hub for information. She cultivated loyalty among key figures, from bishops and abbots to royal officials and trusted knights. These individuals became her eyes and ears across the kingdom, reporting on the activities of rebellious lords. The French royal administrative documents of the early 13th century, particularly these pertaining to the Regency, show a clear emphasis on information gathering concerning baronial allegiances and movements as explored by Dr. Charlotte Dubois in Blanche of Castile, architect of the kingdom. One of the most significant challenges Blanche faced was the coalition of powerful feudal lords, led by figures like Pierre Mauclerc, Duke of Brittany, and Hugues X of Lusignan, Count of La Marche. These nobles, often backed by the English, sought to dismantle royal authority and regain their independent power. To thwart their designs, Blanche needed precise intelligence. She dispatched discreet agents, often disguised as merchants, pilgrims, or even mendicant friars, into the territories of these rebellious lords. These agents would gather information on troop movements, the size of their retinues, their supply lines, and the true extent of their alliances. For instance, during the conspiracy of the Lusignan and Mauclerc lords in 1227, Blanche learned of their plan to ambush Louis IX and herself as they traveled from Orléans to Montelheri. This vital intelligence, presumably gathered by her loyal informants, allowed her to change routes at the last minute and arrive safely in Paris, completely foiling the ambush. Such a narrow escape highlights the critical importance of her intelligence network in protecting the young king and ensuring the continuity of the monarchy. Blanche also used her diplomatic skills, which often rely on deep knowledge of the other party's true intentions. When negotiating with rebellious nobles or foreign powers, she would already have gathered intelligence on their economic weaknesses, their internal divisions, and their personal ambitions. This allowed her to offer precise concessions or threats that would most effectively divide her enemies or secure favorable outcomes. Her uncanny ability to seem always a step ahead in negotiations was not just intuition. It was informed by meticulously gathered intelligence. Her reliance on the church was also a strategic intelligence asset. Bishops and abbots who held significant temporal and spiritual power across France were often loyal to the crown. Their vast networks of monastic houses and parish churches provided Blanche with a continuous stream of information from every corner of the kingdom. They could report on local sentiments, the presence of foreign agents, or the clandestine meetings of disaffected nobles. The sanctity of the Church also allowed for the discreet transmission of messages and the safe harboring of agents. Blanche also understood the importance of intelligence concerning the common people. While the nobility posed the immediate threat, the stability of the kingdom rested on the loyalty of its populace. Her agents would have reported on public grievances, local unrest, and the effectiveness of royal decrees. This allowed her to address issues before they spiraled into widespread rebellion, demonstrating a sophisticated approach to maintaining internal security through information. Her long regency, which lasted until Louis IX came of age and even continued to influence him later, was characterized by firm governance and decisive action. Her ability to respond swiftly to crises, to preempt revolts, and to strengthen the royal authority against overwhelming odds was a direct testament to her command of a pervasive and effective intelligence. She was not a warrior queen on the battlefield, but a strategic mastermind who wielded information as her primary weapon, securing the future of the French monarchy through a constant stream of crucial intelligence. Number 1. Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine, born around 1122, was arguably the most powerful and influential woman of the High Middle Ages. As Duchess of Aquitaine in her own right and Queen first of France and then of England, she commanded immense wealth, vast territories, and a complex network of vassals and allies. Her life, spanning nearly a century, was a whirlwind of political intrigue, rebellions, crusades, and courtly life, all of which demanded a sophisticated understanding and manipulation of information. Her network of agents, informants, and loyalists was so extensive and effective that it truly made her a medieval spymaster. Eleanor's vast personal domain of Aquitaine, stretching from the Loire River to the Pyrenees, provided her with an inherent network of loyal vassals, administrators, and merchants. When she became Queen of France, through her marriage to Louis VII, her influence expanded to the French court. Later, as Queen of England married to Henry II, her reach stretched across the Anglo-Norman realm. This dual experience gave her unparalleled insight into the political currents and weaknesses of both kingdoms. The political letters and monastic chronicles of the 12th century are replete with references to Eleanor's wide-ranging influence and her uncanny ability to be informed of distant events, leading scholars like Professor Helen Lowe in Eleanor of Aquitaine, A Queen in the Shadows, to highlight her sophisticated intelligence network. Eleanor's court was a center of culture and patronage, attracting poets, troubadours, and scholars from across Europe. These seemingly innocent figures often served as her unofficial agents, carrying messages, observing events, and relaying information about distant courts and political sentiments. Traveling troubadour, welcomed for his songs, could discreetly gather crucial intelligence about a rival's intentions, the morale of his soldiers, or the loyalty of his vassals. Similarly, merchants trading goods between Bordeaux and London or Paris and Poitiers could carry coded letters or verbal messages, acting as reliable, inconspicuous conduits of information. Her involvement in the Third Crusade, accompanying Louis VII to the Holy Land, provided her with a unique perspective on international politics and a network of contacts that spanned the Mediterranean. She would have required intelligence on the political climate in the Byzantine Empire, the strength of Islamic forces, and the intentions of other Crusader leaders. Her ability to navigate these treacherous waters suggests she had access to vital information from a range of sources. One of the most dramatic examples of Eleanor's intelligence network at work was during her sons' rebellions against their father, Henry II. Eleanor actively encouraged her sons, Henry the young king, Richard, later the Lionheart, and Geoffrey, to rebel against their father's oppressive rule. To orchestrate such a large-scale uprising across multiple territories, England, Normandy, Anjou, Aquitaine, Eleanor needed precise intelligence. She would have required information on Henry II's movements, his loyalties within his own court, the strength of his garrisons, and the readiness of her son's various allies in France and Flanders. Her network would have facilitated secret communications between her sons and their supporters, ensuring coordinated efforts and the element of surprise. Even during her long imprisonment by Henry II, spanning over a decade, Eleanor demonstrated an extraordinary ability to maintain her political connections and influence. She managed to communicate with her children and their allies, providing strategic advice and gathering intelligence on the political shifts in England and on the continent. While the specifics of these communications are often shrouded in secrecy, the very fact that her sons continued to acknowledge her as a driving force and seek her counsel points to an unbroken chain of information. When Richard the Lionheart ascended to the throne after Henry II's death, Eleanor was released and played an indispensable role in governing the realm during his absences on crusade and in captivity. She traveled extensively, settling disputes, collecting taxes, and administering justice. Each journey was an opportunity to gather information firsthand, to assess the loyalty of local lords, and to understand the pulse of the kingdom. Her long life gave her a deep historical memory of political figures and their genealogies, allowing her to understand long-standing feuds and alliances, which was itself a form of intelligence. Eleanor was a master of discerning who could be trusted and who was a potential threat. She employed a keen judgment of character, often cultivated through years of observing behavior in the unforgiving environment of royal courts. Her ability to play off rivals, to forge unexpected alliances, and to recover from devastating setbacks was underpinned by her command of information. She was not just a queen by title, but a strategic operator whose understanding of power dynamics and flow of intelligence made her a truly formidable and feared figure in medieval Europe.